What do you get when you combine a 21-year-old, a McLaren, rain, and a phone? You get this.
Oh! Oh! No! No! No!
Unless you live under a rock, you've probably heard of Jack Doherty and him crashing his McLaren 570S. Now, normally I would not be making a video on something like this, but it is somewhat automotive related with the McLaren, and the more I saw of this, the more absurd it got, and the more I just had to talk about it. Now, if you're not familiar with this situation, Jack Doherty is a 21-year-old kick streamer and YouTuber. He's gotten over 15 million subscribers on YouTube for making videos like prank videos and IRL videos, not necessarily automotive YouTube videos though. And honestly, if he was making automotive YouTube videos, he wouldn't have 15 million subscribers because automotive people would not put up with the stuff that he does. My personal opinion. To be honest, I didn't really even know who Jack Doherty was before all this happened, and I wish it could have stayed that way. Basically, Jack has a McLaren 570S. Or I should say had. Now again, he's not really an automotive YouTuber, he just has made so much money from YouTube and Kick and content creation in general that he was able to afford to buy a McLaren 570S. Basically what happened was he was driving his McLaren 570S in the rain on the highway. A 21-year-old driving a McLaren in the rain is already not a great combo. Even just anyone driving a McLaren in the rain isn't really a great combo, let alone you add age into the picture, and none of it sounds very good. But then the cherry on top of it all is the phone. Now, this is a very well-documented crash, and the reason for that is before, during, and after the entire crash, Jack was live on Kick. Basically, he had a passenger in the car named Michael, and Michael had a phone live streaming the entire process from the passenger seat. Now, for some reason, while driving, Jack decided to whip out his phone, hold it directly in front of his face, and either he was checking chat for the live stream or he was texting or doing something else. So you have a 21-year-old driving a McLaren in the rain while streaming, and he has his phone in front of his face. That's not a very good idea, and it was kind of proven by what happened next.
No!
Jack decided to accelerate suddenly while going onto a bridge, and if you've ever driven on a bridge in the rain, it's the most likely place where you're going to hydroplane. And the reason for that is a lot of times bridges don't have super great drainage, and so they can pool water a little bit. Especially your car can get unsettled while going onto the bridge, and one thing leads to another and you end up into the guardrail, which is exactly what happened to Jack.
Oh my God.
Now, before we get more into what happened during the crash, I do want to talk about hydroplaning for a second. When I went to go pick up the Porsche on this channel, I did something called the Porsche Experience Center in Atlanta. And there they give you a Porsche that you get to take around the track, and they put you with an instructor to go through some driver development. It's a really fun experience, and you don't need to buy a Porsche to do it. You can just go to the Experience Center and do this experience. The reason why I bring this up, however, is they actually have a hydroplane simulator. They have an epoxy floor with water sprayed on it, where as you drive on, something will kick the rear end of the car out in either direction, and you have to recover the car before you hit an obstacle. It's a really cool piece of technology, and it really does show you what happens during a hydroplane and what to do. Now, the instructor gave me some tips on how to dodge these, and it's to maintain control with not only steering, but throttle and brake. Which most people, what happens when they hydroplane is they just start trying to steer. The issue with that is your wheels have no grip, so that basically means steering's not gonna do anything for you. By adding throttle and brake at the right times, plus the steering, you might be able to re-engage some traction and kind of get yourself going in the right direction. Jack, however, did not do this. He just whipped the wheel around and ended up in the wall. It didn't help that he was going at a high rate of speed, but either way, it happened. I encourage anyone who hasn't already to go through some sort of hydroplane training to avoid something like this happening in your car. It happens way too frequently, and it's really avoidable if you just know how to not get in the hydroplane situation and then how to recover from a hydroplane situation. I'm no professional, I've hydroplaned before, but I haven't gotten in a wreck because of it, and I'm sure a lot of people are in the same boat. Your life and the people's lives that are with you are just not worth the risk of doing something stupid like this in the rain. Anyways, I digress. Let's get back into the crash. Shortly after plunging into the guardrail on the bridge, the camera goes black for about 2 seconds. You see Jack and Michael, his passenger, scrambling to get out of the car because they think it's gonna catch on fire or something. Instead of stopping the stream, leaving the phone behind, whatever, and just focusing on getting out of the vehicle, they keep filming the entire time. Which I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt that as a content creator, it's almost reflex to just film whatever as it's happening. However, I can't give Jack any benefit of the doubt for what happened next. As Jack gets out of the car, Michael is standing there with blood running down his face, obviously concussed and not knowing what's happening. Jack says, "You good?" And before he can even really get an answer, he says, "Here, film on this phone too." He has Michael, who was in the passenger seat, who just went through a crash, filming for him when he should be attending to him medically and stopping all of the video and streams in general. This is the part that made me the most mad out of all of this. God forbid I got into a crash with someone in the passenger seat, I would have dropped everything that I was doing to make sure that they were okay and that they were attended to, rather than getting it all on photo and video. The car is still gonna be there wrecked in 5-10 minutes. You can get video then if you really need this video, but instead he has to keep videoing right after the crash happened instead of making sure his friend is okay. That made me a little bit mad. And I'm sure it made a lot of other people mad too. In fact, this is what everybody's talking about, is Jack is so immersed into the content creator life that he doesn't even know when to stop. Shortly after this happened, a police officer rolled up. It's not like they called the police and the police officer made their way to the crash site. It's almost like the police officer was in traffic behind him by a few cars because he showed up oddly quick. And as the police officer is asking him questions, Jack is describing the events to the best of his ability of what happened. Basically, Jack goes and says, "I hydroplaned, I don't know what happened, I skidded on water and I ended up in the wall." The one thing he did not mention, however, is that he was on his phone during the entire thing. He conveniently left that out to the officer. However, luckily, or somewhat unluckily for Jack, it is all on video and it is very obvious of what was going on before, during, and after the crash. After this, Jack decided to take his shirt off.
Get back, they don't want me to be here. Top crew's using witchcraft only to get the fire off me!
I'm still not entirely sure why he decided to take his shirt off. He wasn't asked by any medical personnel or anything to do any such thing. He just decided to take his shirt off, unfortunately for us. Anyways, he takes his shirt off and then he goes into full content creator mode again, getting multiple shorts videos, TikTok, Instagram reels, saying, "Guys, I crashed my McLaren, I can't believe it," while his friend is still bloody and concussed. Now, the main reason why I'm talking about this is just because of how unaware some people are of how dangerous driving conditions can be, especially in a McLaren. No matter what age you are, driving in the rain in a 570 horsepower McLaren isn't really the best idea, especially when on your phone. So I'm kind of making this in a way to say, don't do what he did. Yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. That pretty much sums it up. But also just the shock and awe factor of this whole experience kind of caught me off guard. It almost puts me at a loss for words that someone that would do something like this has this much influence on these platforms. Now, there was a bit of a silver lining to this incident, and that is Jack got banned off of Kick. Along with that, he did get banned off of some other live streaming platforms. I'm not sure if YouTube has banned him yet or if Twitch has banned him, but I know Kick has done at least a temporary ban for Jack. And while I am glad that there is some consequences to his actions from these big streaming and content creation companies, they're probably going to reinstate him as a creator not too long from now, and that's because he just makes so much money for not only himself, but for the platform as well. I get that probably some of the content he makes is really entertaining to a large demographic of people, but I would urge you guys that if you're watching something like Jack Doherty crash his McLaren, or some of these other YouTubers that just do insane stuff only for views and likes, I would highly encourage you to look at some other smaller YouTubers that put a little bit more effort, and they do it not because they want thousands of views and thousands of likes, but because they do it because they love it. I'm not saying to subscribe to my channel. I'm not saying that you should watch me instead. As much as I would love that, I'm saying look at smaller YouTubers that do this for the passion of what they love rather than it's just a way for them to make a bunch of money. If you guys don't know, I actually pretty much lose money on this YouTube channel. I do it because I love it. And there are a lot of other creators out there that do it because they love it as well. So I'd highly encourage you to move away from some of these larger creators that just make crazy content that really not beneficial to anyone, and move towards some smaller creators or even larger creators that do it because they love it and you can tell that they love to do what they do. I guess that's part of the reason why I'm making this video. Now the other part is I do want to talk about the vehicle he was driving. He was driving a McLaren 570S, which is one of my favorite McLarens. It's considered the 20-teens entry-level McLaren. Basically, it's 570 metric horsepower, and it is a twin turbo V8. It's a pretty cool car. In fact, I would love to have one day. Not necessarily with the paint job that Jack put on it. I'm not entirely sure why that was on the car or what car that should really go on. Regardless, I would love to have a McLaren 570S one day. They're a very cool car, and it's somewhat unfortunate that one is no longer on the board. However, it's a small price to pay that no one got hurt during this incident. There were other people on the road that could have severely gotten injured, and there was a passenger in the car that could have gotten injured that was basically just a bystander during all of this. I know this is kind of a weird video and it's kind of soapboxy almost, but I do want to encourage you guys not only to drive safe in situations like this, get some driver training if you do want to become a better driver, and know where your limits are when you're driving really fast or really high horsepower vehicles. We'll see what happens with Jack Doherty, however, whether he stops making content or he continues to make the same kind of content that he likes to make. This is a more unique video for me to make, but if you guys like this kind of video, please let me know so I know to make more like it in the future. And if you're not already, be sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss any of the content that I do end up making, whether it's this or working on the cars that you see in the background. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.